Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Picture two houses sitting side by side in an upscale neighborhood. In one lives Nero Tulip, sharp, reflective, a Wall Street trader making a comfortable living, nice car, solid savings, a life most would envy. By nearly every standard, he's doing well. But next door, that's where John lives. John's also a trader, though not nearly as thoughtful or educated as Nero. Yet somehow, John is obscenely, almost cartoonishly wealthy. Two luxury German sedans in the driveway, a vintage Ferrari in the garage, and a house that seems to expand every few months. His wife drapes herself in diamonds, the size of marbles, and chats, casually about vacations, to places she couldn't locate on a globe if her life depended on it. Every single morning, Nero watches this parade of excess, and something dark starts creeping into his soul. He knows he's intelligent, he works hard, he makes good decisions. But standing in John's shadow, he feels like an absolute failure. That massive house looming next door makes his own accomplishments shrink to nothing. He begins questioning everything: his strategies, his life choices, his very worth as a person. Then one morning, the world flips upside down. Nero steps outside to find John in his front yard, stripped of his usual swagger, looking utterly deflated. He's been let go, not just fired, completely wiped out. The fortune, the cars, that ever-expanding mansion, all of it built on a hidden vulnerability he never saw coming. The whole thing was smoke and mirrors. This tale of two neighbors opens the door to one of the most crucial books of our time, Fooled by Randomness, by the brilliant and sometimes controversial thinker Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Published in the early 2000s, it quietly exploded into a phenomenon, selling over 500,000 copies and appearing in nearly 30 languages. It wasn't just a book, it was a wake-up call. Taleb, a former quantitative trader turned scholar of uncertainty, spotted something almost everyone else was missing. He realized we live in a world where we constantly confuse luck with skill. We worship the wealthy and successful as visionaries, while dismissing the less fortunate as incompetent, never pausing to consider the enormous, hidden role that pure chance plays in all our lives. Today I'm walking you through the profound insights packed into this book. Here's what I promise. By the time we're done, you'll have developed something like a superpower. You'll look at the world, at success and failure, at headlines, even at your own life, with fresh eyes. You'll learn to spot the invisible hand of randomness at work, and more importantly, you'll discover how to shield yourself from its cruelest tricks. This isn't just about finance or markets. It's about understanding the very nature of reality and how to navigate it wisely. Let's start with the question that haunted Nero. Why did John, the seemingly unstoppable success story, crash so spectacularly, while Nero, the cautious one, survived and eventually flourished? The answer comes down to understanding two fundamentally different types of careers. Consider a dentist. Becoming one is grueling. Years of study, rigorous training, endless practice. But once you've made it, your success flows largely from your skill. A competent, careful dentist will do consistently well. The income is predictable. You won't become a billionaire overnight, but you also won't go bankrupt overnight. Randomness barely touches your daily success. Now flip to professions like trading, entrepreneurship, or acting. These fields are absolutely soaked in randomness. You can be brilliant and fail miserably. You can be, let's be honest, mediocre and succeed beyond imagination simply by catching the right wave at the right moment. John built his entire career on a bet that looked bulletproof but wasn't. 7 straight years, everything clicked. Money poured in year after year. The market kept validating his approach. His confidence ballooned, his ego inflated, and everyone around him declared him a genius. He became a master of the universe. He started believing his own press. He thought he'd cracked some secret code to the market. Nero took a completely different path. He understood the world's fundamental unpredictability. He obsessed over avoiding what he called the rare event. That single unexpected catastrophe capable of erasing a lifetime of gains and moments. His objective wasn't maximizing profits every year, his objective was survival. He said, "I'm shooting for longevity." He absorbed small, manageable losses constantly, but positioned himself so that no single terrible day could knock him out entirely. While John collected massive bonuses, Nero quietly built a stable nest egg, parking it only in the safest vehicles, like U.S. Treasury bonds. He completely missed the great stock boom, but he also didn't have to sweat the crash. His wealth didn't depend on the market's mood swings. Then summer 1998 arrived, and with it, the rare event. A financial crisis originating in Russia sent shockwaves around the planet. The exact investments that had crowned John a hero suddenly imploded. Strategies that had worked flawlessly for 7 years stopped working overnight. Because he was so confident, so leveraged, so unprepared for the unexpected, he lost everything. His entire career was an illusion, a product of a lucky streak during a specific market cycle. He was, in Taleb's memorable phrase, a lucky fool. This is the book's central revelation. Someone can benefit enormously from luck, yet in their mind they'll attribute their success entirely to skill, and the world will buy it. We see the external markers of wealth, the mansion, the exotic cars, but we don't see the hidden machinery that produced them. We don't see the risks they took. To really grasp this, Taleb presents a thought experiment that's both chilling and ingenious. He calls it Russian roulette. Imagine some bored billionaire approaches you with a proposal. He sets a revolver on the table. 6 chambers, 1 bullet. He offers you $10 million to press the gun against your head and pull the trigger. What's your answer? Obviously, you refuse. The risk is insane. But let's follow the logic. 6 possible outcomes exist, or what Taleb calls alternative histories. 5 of those histories end with you walking away $10 million richer. You'd be celebrated as bold and courageous. Journalists would write profiles praising your guts and genius. Friends and family would look at you with awe. You'd be a hero. In the 6th alternative history, you're dead. The problem is, in actual reality, we only witness one history unfold. We see the person who pulled the trigger and won. We see the 10 million, the success, the glory. We don't see the other 5 possible worlds, including the one ending in tragedy. The winner, riding high on success, might even convince himself he was smart to take that bet. He might author a book called How I Made 10 Million with One Bold Move. He becomes a role model. But was his decision wise? Absolutely not. It was catastrophically foolish, even though he happened to survive. You can't judge the quality of a decision by its outcome. You can only judge it by the cost of the alternatives. This is the bizarre accounting Taleb highlights. $10 million earned through diligent, skillful work, like our dentist, is fundamentally different from $10 million earned by playing Russian roulette. The dollar amount is identical, but the dependence on randomness is worlds apart. One is stable and repeatable, the other fragile and dependent on a single lucky draw. Real life, Taleb warns, is far more vicious than simple Russian roulette. For one, life's revolver might have thousands of chambers, not just 6. You could pull the trigger dozens of times and survive, building a false sense of security. You forget the bullet even exists. Second, unlike a game where you can see the gun and count the chambers, in life you don't even see the weapon. The risks are invisible. You might be playing Russian roulette without realizing it. John, our failed trader, was doing exactly that. His strategy was like pulling the trigger on a revolver with 1,000 chambers. For 7 years he kept winning. He got richer, more confident. He and everyone else mistook his luck for skill. But the bullet was always there, waiting. In summer 1998, it found him. This failure to see hidden risks, to consider the alternative histories that could have unfolded, leads to one of the most powerful distortions in how we perceive the world. It's called survivorship bias. Imagine infinite monkeys at infinite typewriters. If they bang away long enough, one will almost certainly produce a perfect copy of Homer's Iliad. Now imagine that monkey shows up at your door with his manuscript. He has an impeccable track record. He wrote the Iliad. Would you bet your life savings he could write the Odyssey next? Of course not. You know his success was a fluke, pure cosmic luck. But here's the problem. In real life, we don't see all the other monkeys. We don't see the trillions of failed monkeys who typed nothing but gibberish. They've vanished. All we see is the one survivor, the one who made it. And we get a completely warped view of the odds. This bias is everywhere, especially potent in business and finance. We're bombarded with success stories. Bestsellers like The Millionaire Next Door study wealthy people's habits to find the secrets to success. They discover many millionaires are frugal, hard-working risk-takers. But this analysis is deeply flawed. The authors only examined the winners. They never looked at the vast graveyard of failed entrepreneurs who were also frugal, hard-working risk-takers. Risk-taking is necessary for massive success, but it's also necessary for massive failure. The book shows you only the monkeys who typed the Iliad while hiding all the ones who didn't. Think about people in your own life. Maybe you have a friend or relative who's become wildly successful. It's easy to feel a stab of jealousy, like Nero did with John. Easy to think, why not me? I'm just as smart, I work just as hard. This is what Taleb calls the social treadmill. You become successful, move to a wealthier neighborhood, and suddenly feel poor again, because you're comparing yourself to even more successful people around you. Mark and Janet, the couple on Park Avenue, perfectly illustrate this. Mark makes $500,000 annually, placing him in the top 1%. But in his building, surrounded by corporate titans and hedge fund billionaires, he's at the bottom. His wife Janet feels humiliated. She's living in a world of survivors, and it distorts her perception of her husband's genuine success. She's miscalculating the probabilities because she's using the wrong sample. Survivorship bias doesn't just warp our perception of wealth, it poisons our understanding of history, expertise, even science. We celebrate generals who won wars through reckless gambles, forgetting thousands of other generals who took similar gambles and vanished into obscurity. We listen to stock market gurus with good track records, forgetting that, with enough people making predictions, some will be right for a while just by luck. Taleb shares a wonderful story about a con man's trick. In January, you receive an anonymous letter predicting the stock market will rise that month. It does. In February, another letter arrives predicting the market will fall. It does. This continues 6 months. By July, you're convinced this person is a prophet. The 7th letter asks you to invest heavily in a special fund. You do, and lose everything. What happened? The con man started with 10,000 names. He sent a market up letter to 5,000 and a market down letter to the other 5,000. Each month, he only contacted the group whose prediction came true. By month 6, he has a small group who've watched him be right 6 straight times. To them, he's a genius. To us, seeing the whole process, he's just a fraud exploiting survivorship bias. This is why Taleb is so skeptical of experts, especially in fields dominated by randomness. He recalls a debate with journalist George Will. Professor Robert Shiller, who later won a Nobel Prize, had warned for years the stock market was overpriced. George Will pointed out that anyone following Shiller's advice would have missed huge gains as the market continued climbing. This argument sounds clever, but it's nonsense. It's like telling someone they were wrong to warn their friend not to play Russian roulette because the friend pulled the trigger and survived. The fact that an irrational market can become even more irrational doesn't make it a good bet. Shiller was right about the process, even if wrong about timing in that single visible history. But the media and our minds are drawn to simple, visible outcomes. We love a good story. And he was right and made a fortune. Beats. He made a thoughtful, probabilistic decision that happened not to work out this time. This brings us deeper into a more personal dimension of the problem. It's not just that the world is random and we're bad at seeing it. Our own minds are wired to be fooled. Think about this. You're planning a vacation. You're torn between a rainy, romantic week in Paris and a sunny, relaxing week in the Bahamas. You figure there's a 50-50 chance of going to either. Now, according to probability laws, the rational way to visualize your future is as a linear combination of both states. 50% of you walking in Paris with an umbrella, 50% lying on a beach with a cocktail. Can you actually picture that? Of course not. It's absurd. Our brains can only hold one concrete image at a time. We see either Paris or the Bahamas. We can't see the probability between. This is profound. We are, in Taleb's words, probability blind. We inhabit a world of maybes, but our brains think in yes or no. This is especially true when emotions are involved. Taleb shares the intensely personal story of Nero Tulip's hidden struggle. At 35, Nero was diagnosed with cancer. The first thing he read was the statistic, 72% 5-year survival rate. Mathematically, a 72% chance of living equals a 28% chance of dying. But in Nero's mind, they were completely different worlds. When he focused on the 28% chance of death, he saw himself dead. He imagined details of his funeral. He was paralyzed with fear. When he focused on the 72% chance of survival, he saw himself cured, healthy, skiing in the Alps. He felt cheerful and optimistic. At no point did he feel 72% alive. His mind, like ours, couldn't live in probabilities ambiguity. It had to jump to one concrete outcome. This is the origin of the book's subtitle, The Hidden Role of Chance in Life and in the Markets. The chance is hidden because our brains aren't designed to see it. This insight came from two Israeli psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Their work, which eventually won Kahneman a Nobel Prize in economics, turned our understanding of human rationality upside down. For centuries, economists assumed humans were rational actors making optimal decisions to maximize well-being. Kahneman and Tversky proved this simply isn't true. They discovered our minds don't work like powerful computers logically calculating odds for every decision. Instead, we rely on mental shortcuts, or heuristics. These heuristics are quick and dirty rules of thumb, helping us navigate a complex world. They work most of the time, but come with dangerous side effects, biases. One of the most powerful is the availability heuristic. We judge an event's probability by how easily we can recall an example. This explains why people fear dying in a terrorist attack more than a car accident. Images of terrorism are vivid, emotional, constantly shown in media. Car accidents are common and mundane. Even though car accidents kill vastly more people, terrorism's risk feels bigger because it's more available to our minds. This explains why news media is so toxic to our understanding of the world. A journalist's job is finding the most sensational, attention-grabbing story. A plane crash is news. The thousands of planes landing safely aren't. A stock market dip is a crisis. Slow, steady growth over years is boring. Media constantly feeds our availability heuristic, making us overestimate rare but dramatic events and underestimate common but less exciting ones. Another powerful bias is anchoring. We don't evaluate things in a vacuum. We evaluate them relative to a reference point, an anchor. If I ask you to guess a city's population after telling you it's more than 200,000, your guess will be much lower than if I'd said it's less than 5 million. The initial number anchors your thinking. This explains why wealth doesn't necessarily make us happy. Once we get used to a certain income level, that becomes our new anchor. A loss from that level hurts far more than an equivalent gain feels good. This is called loss aversion. Psychologists estimate the pain of a loss is about 2.5 times as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Think back to the dentist in Taleb's example with an excellent investment strategy expected to make 15% yearly. If he checks his portfolio every minute, he'll experience tiny, random market fluctuations as a series of painful losses and small pleasures. Because losses hurt more than gains, he'll end the day emotionally drained and miserable, even if his portfolio is up. But if he only checks yearly, he'll see the overall positive return and feel great. Same strategy, same outcome, but a completely different emotional experience, all because of observation frequency. This is why Taleb says he weans himself from news. Silence beats noise. These biases aren't just quirks in our thinking, they're fundamental parts of our mental machinery. Evolutionary psychologists argue our brains aren't designed for the modern world. We evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in the African savanna, a world of immediate physical threats and simple choices. Our brains are optimized for that environment, not for a world of abstract probabilities, complex financial markets, and 24-hour news cycles. We're running ancient software in a modern world. Our minds, they suggest, work in two different ways, called System 1 and System 2. System 1 is our intuitive, emotional, fast-acting brain. It's what makes you jump back when you see a snake-like shape on the ground. It's automatic and effortless. System 2 is our rational, analytical, slow-thinking brain. It's what you use to solve a math problem. It's controlled and requires effort. The problem is, System 1 is almost always in charge. Our emotional reactions come first. Then our rational System 2 comes in afterward to find logical explanations for why we feel the way we do. We feel, then we think. This is why logical arguments often fail to change our minds or behavior. You can know intellectually that smoking is bad for you, but the emotional craving from System 1 will override that knowledge. This brings us to the deepest philosophical problem in the book, one that's haunted thinkers for centuries, the problem of induction. It's most famously illustrated by the story of the black swan. For thousands of years, people in the old world were certain all swans were white. Every swan they'd ever seen, every swan their ancestors had ever seen was white. The evidence was overwhelming. The theory, all swans are white, was confirmed again and again, thousands upon thousands of times. For all practical purposes, it was scientific fact. Then European explorers landed in Australia and saw for the first time a Cygnus atratus, a black swan. With that single observation, a theory confirmed for millennia was instantly proven false. This is the problem of induction in a nutshell. No amount of confirming observations can definitively prove a theory true, but a single counter-observation can definitively prove it false. As philosopher Karl Popper argued, a theory is only scientific if it can be falsified, if there's some conceivable observation that could prove it wrong. This has profound implications for how we should view knowledge, especially knowledge derived from past data. Think back to Victor Niederhofer, the trader who based his strategy on the belief the market would never move by a certain amount in a single day, because it had never happened before. He was the man who'd only ever seen white swans. In October 1987, a black swan arrived and wiped him out. The most dangerous statement in finance and in life is this has never happened before. History doesn't crawl, it jumps. It's governed by rare, unpredictable, high-impact events, black swans. The terrible irony is that the more stable things seem, the more white swans you observe, the more vulnerable you become to the one black swan you're not expecting. Long periods of calm and stability lull us into false security, causing us to take on more and more hidden risk. Then the inevitable surprise happens. So we find ourselves in a difficult position. We live in a world governed by unpredictable, rare events. Our minds aren't built to understand probability. We're wired with emotional biases leading us to make irrational decisions. We're constantly fooled by randomness. What, then, can we do? How are we supposed to live? This is where Taleb moves from diagnosis to prescription, and his advice isn't about finding better ways to predict the future. It's about accepting our limitations and finding a dignified way to live with them. He offers a modern form of an ancient philosophy, Stoicism. When most people hear Stoic, they think of someone emotionless, enduring pain with a stiff upper lip. But that's not what ancient Stoicism was about. For the Stoics, the goal wasn't eliminating emotions, but preventing them from controlling our behavior. The core idea is distinguishing between what is in our control and what isn't. We have no control over world events. We can't control the market, other people, whether we get sick. We can't control luck. But there's one thing, and one thing only, that we have absolute control over: our own behavior, our own virtue, our own dignity. This is the ultimate solution to being fooled by randomness. No matter how sophisticated our calculations, no matter how much we try to dominate the odds, randomness will always have the last word. We're left only with how we act. A hero in the classical sense isn't judged by whether they win or lose. They're judged by their heroic behavior. Taleb tells the story of Roman hero Mark Antony after his final crushing defeat. The god Bacchus, his protector, has abandoned him. He's lost everything. Poet C.P. Cavafy writes, advising Antony how to face this moment. He doesn't tell him to be emotionless. He says listen while shaken by emotion, but not with the coward's imploration and complaints. He tells him not to mourn his luck, not to enter denial, just to accept his fate with dignity. This is the Stoic ideal. It's not about being tough. It's about recognizing that the only victory that truly matters is victory over oneself. It's about executing a protocol of behavior that doesn't depend on immediate circumstances. It's grace under pressure. So how do we apply this in our own lives? Taleb offers a few practical tricks, ways to tie ourselves to the mast, to protect us from the siren song of our own emotions and the noise of the world. The first, and most important, is what he calls wax in my ears. Just as Odysseus filled his sailors' ears with wax to protect them from the sirens' fatal song, we must protect ourselves from the constant, toxic stream of information from news media. We've already seen how news distorts our perception of risk. It triggers our emotional system one brain and makes us overreact to every little fluctuation, mistaking noise for signal. Taleb says he's weaned himself from news almost completely. He has the financial news channel on in his office all day, but with volume turned completely off. Without sound, he says, the pundits with their moving lips and serious expressions look ridiculous. They lose their intimidating effect. His rule is simple. If an event is important enough, it will find its way to him. He doesn't need bombardment with momentary noise. The second trick is creating a clear line between what we will and won't expose to randomness. Taleb's method is what he calls a barbell strategy. On one end of the barbell, he's extremely conservative. Like Nero, he keeps the vast majority of his assets in the safest possible investments, completely protected from the black swan. He'll never be wiped out by a rare event. But on the other end of the barbell, he takes a small number of aggressive, speculative bets. He invests a tiny portion of capital in things that could benefit from a rare event, things with high probability of losing a small amount, but tiny probability of making a spectacular amount. He's not trying to predict the black swan, he's just positioning himself to benefit from it if it happens. He's a quote. This is his answer to the problem of induction. He uses his skepticism not to be paralyzed, but to act. He says, I will use statistics and inductive methods to make aggressive bets, but I won't use them to manage my risks. He knows he can be wrong, so he ensures the cost of being wrong is always small and controlled, while the potential reward of being right is enormous and open-ended. This is the exact opposite of what John, the failed trader, did. John's strategy made him a small amount most of the time, but exposed him to rare, catastrophic loss. Finally, the most important lesson is a mindset change. It's about embracing dignity and personal aesthetics. It's about knowing you can't control what life throws at you, but you can always control how you react. Don't complain. Don't play the victim. Don't blame others for your fate. Don't show self-pity. As Taleb says, the only article Lady Fortuna has no control over is your behavior. This isn't just about big life-altering events. It's about small things, being courteous when you lose money, not getting angry at a rude driver, maintaining your personal standards, regardless of reward or pressure. This is the final profound message of Fooled by Randomness. It's a call to intellectual humility, to recognize the limits of our own knowledge and the vastness of what we don't know. It's a call to courage, to face a random world not with arrogant certainty, but with resilient and dignified skepticism. It's a reminder that true success isn't about accumulating the most wins, but about surviving with grace, knowing that how you play the game is the only thing that truly matters. As we reach the end of our journey through Fooled by Randomness, I want to reflect on why this book is so powerful and why its message feels more urgent today than ever. What Nassim Nicholas Taleb achieved is genuinely rare. He took a subject often abstract and academic, probability, uncertainty, epistemology, and made it intensely personal, practical, and human. This isn't a book of equations. It's a book of wisdom passed down from someone who spent his life in the trenches, betting against the arrogance of those who think they can predict the future. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the call for intellectual humility. We live in an age of experts, gurus, and pundits, all selling us the illusion of certainty. They offer 7 steps to success, a guaranteed investment strategy, a perfect prediction of the future. Taleb reminds us this is a dangerous fantasy. The world is far more random, far more unpredictable than our human minds want to believe. Recognizing this, truly accepting it, is the first step toward wisdom. It's liberating. It frees you from the pressure of having to know everything and allows you to focus on what truly matters, building a life that's robust to the unexpected. This book is a powerful antidote to the envy and comparison that social media and modern culture breed. When you see someone achieve spectacular success, your first instinct will no longer be jealousy. It will be curiosity. You'll ask, how much of this was skill, and how much was luck? Did they get there through a repeatable, stable process, or by unknowingly playing Russian roulette? This simple shift in perspective can save you from a lifetime of feeling inadequate and help you focus on your own path, on building something real and durable. So how can you start applying these ideas to your own life right now? First, practice the art of wax in your ears. For just 1 week, try a media fast. Stop watching the news. Stop checking minute-by-minute fluctuations of the stock market or your crypto portfolio. Stop scrolling through endless headlines. See how it feels to disconnect from the noise. You might find you lose nothing of value and gain a profound sense of clarity and peace. Second, start thinking in terms of alternative histories. Next time you make a decision, don't just think about the outcome you want. Think about the range of possible outcomes. Ask yourself, what's the worst-case scenario here? What's the rare event I'm not seeing? How can I protect myself from it? This simple mental exercise will make you a far more robust and resilient decision-maker. Finally, embrace the Stoic mindset. Next time you face a setback, disappointment, or moment of bad luck, focus on the one thing you can control: your reaction. Don't complain, don't blame, don't despair. See it as an opportunity to practice grace under pressure. See it as a test of your character. This isn't easy, but it's the path to true inner freedom. It's the knowledge that, no matter what fortune throws at you, it can never take away your dignity. That was a summary of Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. We've walked through the key ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true power of this book is in the quiet moments of reading, when one of Taleb's stories or a particular phrase connects with your own experience in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your guide to decide if this journey is worth your time. If anything we've discussed today has sparked your curiosity, I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can fundamentally change how you see the world and your place within it. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you've found this journey valuable, please show your support by liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.